Hello, welcome to Chapter 8, Governance and Well-being. The major objective of this chapter is to understand the exemplary role of a ruler. Second is to understand what an ideal government should look like in Confucian philosophy. The political theory of Confucianism in pre-Qing dynasty in China regards humaneness and righteousness as the governing criteria. Its ideological origin is a thought of emphasizing on the people since the Western Zhou dynasty, and also on the Confucian thoughts of humaneness, morality, and politics. Due to the unrest of the spring and autumn period, Confucius proposed the ethical reform of society. His vision of ideal government begins in the moral self-cultivation of a capable leader. So it was Confucius who inherited from the humaneness of Confucius and developed into the ideal political theory. Such political theories still have a far-reaching influence on the contemporary governance. Mencius benevolent government or humane government advocates people-oriented in politics. Mencius believes that for a country, the people are the most valuable. The society is second, and the monarch is a later. So he also said that if the monarch had made a mistake, his subjects could persuade him, and if he refused to listen many times, he could overthrow him. So Mencius opposed the war. He believed that the war was cruel and advocated the unification of the world with a benevolent government. And economically, Mencius advocated that the people have constant output so that farmers have a certain land to rely on and to reduce taxes. So Mencius' theory of benevolent government is based on the theory of good nature. Mencius once said, everyone has a heart of compassion. So there are two kinds of government, that of Wang or the sage king. The other is that of Ba or military lord. The former is carried on through moral instruction and education. The latter is conducted through force and compulsion. So let's look at what Mencius said about these two types of government. He said, one who uses force in the name of humaneness is the hegemon, and he must rule a state of a considerable size. However, one who expresses virtue by practicing humaneness is a true king, and he does not need to rule a large state. King Tang did it with only 70 li, and King Wen with 100. When people submit to force, they do so unwillingly because they are in lack of strength. When people submit to virtue, they do so sincerely because they feel a heartfelt admiration. So a good example of this is the submission of the 70 disciples to Confucius. So the book of the poetry said, from east to west and from north to south, everyone shows submission. So that is what I mean. So you see, and two kinds of government, the government of Wang or sage king, and the government of Ba, that means using the military force. So let's look at the power of example. Confucius believed that self-realization results in the self-realization of others, so which can result in the moral transformation of the society at large. So here's a dialogue between Ji Kangzi, a top official of state of Lu, between Ji Kangzi and Confucius. When Jikanzi asked Confucius about governing, Confucius responded, to govern. Zheng means to correct. If you lead by correcting yourself, who would dare to remain incorrect? And then Jikanzi asked about the way to govern a state. What would you think if I were to kill those who are inhumane so as to advocate humaneness? Master replied, in governing the state, what is the point of killing? If you practice goodness, people will be good. So the virtue of Junzi is like wind, while that of common people is like grass. So grass bends as wind blow. So this is a very well-known dialogue between Confucius and Jikanzi. We can see the power of example, exemplary rule of a ruler. So in Confucius' vision, that only the ruler with humaneness can be a true king. Yes, let's explain further. In Confucian vision, the well-being of people is dependent largely on the moral character of the ruler. Being a good man is the premise of becoming a respectable and successful ruler. While actualizing his humaneness, he should help actualize that of his minister. Such responsibilities should be shared by him and his appointed officials in the administration of the state. Though Confucius himself failed in achieving official position, he expected his disciple to learn the way to be moral in order to get official position. So he firmly believed that only good people who can make good officials, and good officials can make the government good. And talking about this 君子, there is a sentence, 君子 should not be like a utensil designated for a special purpose only. So in sense of ruler, it is the same. A good official is not a person who exercises a particular skill or fulfills a particular function. Specialized skills are not what make him a good official. It is his readiness to improve the lot of the people and to see to their needs as they arise and make him a good official. So, the ruler, according to Confucius, has a responsibility to the people for their material well-being. A government that spends too much is bound to tax too much. Government must be fiscally sensitive, mindful of the heavy burden taxation places on the people. So government should be mindful not to draw on the people's labor for public work, projects during the agricultural seasons. So to interfere with people's agriculture activities cannot but reduce their agriculture productivity, the base of their livelihood. The original sentence goes like this. The Mencius said, in governing a state of 1,000 carats, one should take on his duty with reverence and trustworthiness, avoid excesses in expenditure, extend love to others, and employ his people in right season. In exchange with his disciple, Ran Qiu, Confucius suggests why the material well-being of the people is a critical concern for the government. When the master went away, Ran Yu drove for him. The master said, what a dense population. Ran Yu said, when the population multiplies, what more should be done? Enrich them, replied the master. After they are enriched, what more should be done? Educate them, he answered. So the implied meaning lies in that only when people's material needs have been satisfied will they be susceptible to moral instructions. So from the book of the history, we have this sentence, heavens see as my people see, and heaven hears as my people hear. So the people are blaming me, the one man, for my delay. I must now go forward. So the will of heaven is the will of the people. The rulers win it through virtuous and benevolent rule. So they lose it by abandoning virtuous and benevolent rules. In the end, it is the ruler's relationship with and the treatment of his people that decides their legitimacy. So the mandate is precarious. It can be won and it can be lost. So, as we know, saying that people can carry or overthrow boats. The reasoning behind the benevolent government advocated by the Mencius lies in unbearable heart. And Mencius emphasized that all the people have a mind that cannot bear to see the sufferings of others. So ancient kings have such a commiserating mind and accordingly a commiserating government. So having a commiserating mind and effects is a commiserating government. Governing the world was like turning something around on the palm of the hand. And again, talking about the man of worth and the man with humaneness, Mencius said, if the humane and worthy are not trusted, the state will be short of talented. If the rights and the righteousness are missing, the distinctions of superior and inferior will not be observed. So if good government is absent, the state resources will be insufficient. So we can see that Mencius, a benevolent government, emphasized on the moral character of the ruler, because the virtue of the ruler is like wind, and that of the people is like the grass. So the exemplary function of the ruler is obvious. If the ruler himself hasn't done so well with his self-moral cultivation, there's no way for him to become a true king who would prioritize the matters of the people. So the people and the government, they are interplay each other. They are the two entities in these circumstances. Let's take reciprocity as a theoretic basis. So if the ruler is inhumane and he is careless about the matter of the people, he will be at a risk of being overthrown by the people. And vice versa, if he is respected by the people, so the people will be willingly submissive to the ruler, even in some cases at the cost of their lives. That's the main content of this chapter, the governance and well-being. Thank you for being with me.